Thanks, Jennifer. As you can see, there are 5 basic sections to the ILS Proton. Down here is the Proton first stage, which consists of a central tank containing oxidizer surrounded by 6 outboard RD-276 fuel tanks, each of which carries one of the 6 engines. Next is the Proton second stage, which consists of 3 RD-210 and 1 RD-211 liquid rocket engines. The Proton third stage has 1 RD-213 engine and a 4-nozzle Vernier engine. The BreezeM upper stage is composed of a central core and an additional jettisonable propellant tank, powered by 1 pump-fed gimbaled main engine. And at the top of the ILS Proton, we have the payload fairing and adapter, made up of 2 symmetrical payload fairing halves with a static envelope diameter of 3.87 meters. There are multiple adapter and separation systems available on the ILS Proton.
Telstar 14R, or Estrella do Sol 2, is a commercial communication satellite built by Space Systems Loral for Telesat. The satellite will utilize 46 high-powered Ku band transponders, or 58 36 megahertz transponder equivalents, over 5 coverage beams consisting of Brazil, the continental United States, including the Gulf of Mexico and Northern Caribbean, the southern cone of South America, the Andean region, including Central America and Southern Caribbean, and the North and Mid-Atlantic Ocean. Following its launch, Telstar 14R Estrella do Sol 2 will be located at 63 degrees west longitude, where it will replace and augment the communications capability currently supplied by Telsat's Telstar 14 Estrella do Sol. Let's learn a bit more now about the manufacturer of Telstar 14R, Space Systems Loral, in this short video.
Space Systems Loral designed and built Telstar 14R, a high-performance communications satellite for Telesat, one of the world's leading satellite operators. The Telstar satellite fleet brings people closer together through a broad range of worldwide communications services, including television, voice, internet, and data for fixed use in homes, businesses, and by government organizations, as well as for mobile, maritime, and aeronautical applications. With a payload of 46 active Ku-band transponders and the latest in satellite technology, Telstar 14R will offer high-power commercial communications to growing markets from its 63 degrees west orbital location. 5 antenna beams provide flexible coverage to Brazil, the continental United States, the North Atlantic Ocean region, as well as the Andean and southern regions of South America. Using Space Systems Loral's highly reliable 1300 satellite platform, Telstar 14R has a launch mass of more than 4,900 kilograms and provides over 12 kilowatts of power throughout its 15-year mission life. Led by Executive Director Larry Rubin, a large cadre of engineers, scientists, technicians, and managers at Space Systems Loral in Palo Alto, California, worked closely with their counterparts from Ottawa, Ontario-based Telesat and suppliers from around the world to design, build, and test Telstar 14R. Cohesive teamwork is one reason Space Systems Loral is the leader in commercial satellites, delivering more commercial capacity on orbit than any other manufacturer. Telstar 14R was delivered to the launch base per requirements and ahead of schedule, a testament to the efforts of the entire team. Thank you and congratulations from Space Systems Loral to Telesat, to our more than 3,000 employees, and to all of our suppliers who supported the Telstar 14R program.
Here's an entry from the ILS Telstar 14R blog written on May 9th by Mike Thie. Quote, well, joint operations continue without incident. The spacecraft is mounted to the Proton-M, encapsulation is complete, and the electrical teams are performing their joint checkouts. But it is May 9th, and this is one of the most memorialized days in Russian history. It is Victory Day, the day that marks the end of World War II. And just as Memorial Day is in America, this is a day of celebrating the veterans of the war, and in particular, the many who were lost. And what an honor to be part of this day with our Russian friends and colleagues. For those who don't know, at the entrance to Area 95 in Baikonur is the World War II monument depicting a soldier pointing to the west, the direction of the major Russian allies during the war. In the late afternoon, nearly the entire campaign team gathered for a walk, a parade, from a Feely hotel down to the monument. It is customary to lay flowers at the monument as a memorial, and this parade was no different. Led by the Director of Operations in Baikonur, we paraded down to the monument to lay down our floral offerings. Many people made the same trip over the course of the day as people were coming and going over the entire afternoon. It was quite an emotional event for many of the parade goers. After many shouts of Spraznikum, or victory, congratulations, we were back at the Feely Hotel for a Victory Day celebration at the pavilion. And once again, short of having a swimming pool and fireworks, it was as if we were back home. The grill was hot for hours and everyone enjoyed the event. The Proton rocket is able to lift very heavy payloads into orbit. Let's take a moment to learn more about the development of the Proton. The Proton launch vehicle is the backbone of the Russian space industry with a long and significant history. Here are some quick facts. The Proton is the largest and most powerful Russian launch vehicle in operation. It has been launched more than 350 times since the mid-1960s. Khrushchev Research and Production Space Center, the majority owner of ILS, is one of the pillars of the Russian aerospace industry and manufactures both the Proton rocket and the Breeze-M upper stage. While the first Proton mission was in July of 1965, the first commercial Proton launch took place almost 30 years later in April of 1996. The UR-500 vehicle's first three payloads were spacecraft called Proton-1, 2, and 3, and subsequently, the launcher was named after its original payload. Khrushchev manages federal launch missions while ILS offers the Proton for commercial satellite launches. There are about 7 to 8 commercial missions a year and 3 to 5 federal missions, launching at a rate of about 1 per month. Just how tall is an ILS Proton rocket, you may wonder? Well, we thought it would be interesting to compare the ILS Proton to a couple of items to give you some idea of its height. The Brooklyn Bridge, a majestic bridge that accents the New York City skyline. It was built in 1883 and is one of the world's longest suspension bridges. The Brooklyn Bridge took 13 years to complete. A typical 19-story building, housing for many families or a place of work. Many buildings are quite beautiful and functional for both private and public use. Apartments, condominiums, conference centers, government or corporate buildings. The Ford building in Detroit, Michigan took almost 4 years to construct. The Proton rocket. It is beautiful to many, it is majestic, and it is a symbol of man's ability to conquer gravity and space. A typical mission from launch pad to geostationary transfer orbit is approximately 9 hours long. The Proton rocket is built in less than 2 years. A typical satellite program can take 24 to 36 months depending on the requirement, which would be true for any mission, not just an ILS Proton mission. So how do these compare? The Brooklyn Bridge is 48.5 meters, or 159 feet from the roadway to the top of its 2 suspension towers. One story of a typical building is 10 feet high, making the 19-story building roughly 57.9 meters, or 190 feet tall. While the Proton rocket weighs more than 1.5 million pounds, it is 58.2 meters, or 191 feet tall. That's taller than your average 19-story building. The launch site for ILS Proton missions is the Baikonur Cosmodrome. Let's take a closer look at the launch facility.
The Baikonur Cosmodrome in Kazakhstan is the oldest and largest operating space center in the world and was founded in 1955. It was originally built as a long-range missile center and later expanded to include launch facilities for spaceflight. It is located approximately 2,100 kilometers, or about 1,300 miles, southeast of Moscow. The Cosmodrome is a large Y-shaped complex that extends about 100 miles from east to west and 55 miles north to south, which is about the size of Holland. The facility is operated by Roscosmos, the Russian space agency, and the area is under a long-term lease from the Republic of Kazakhstan. There are 3 pads available for Proton launches. Today's ILS Proton will launch from pad 39 in area 200, which is on the western end of the Cosmodrome.
It is now about 1:11 a.m. in Baikonur, and Telstar 14R will launch aboard an ILS Proton rocket in just about 4 minutes. The Proton is specifically designed to launch in most weather conditions, such as extreme hot or cold. Harsh upper-level winds are really the only weather condition that could cause a delay in Proton flight. So Russ joins us now, and we're going to talk a little bit about the current weather conditions in Baikonur. What's going on there now?
Jennifer, the weather conditions at the site are favorable for launch and skies are mostly clear. Currently, the weather readings at the Baikonur Cosmodrome indicate that we are within range limits for liftoff. At last check, we had a liftoff temperature of 19 degrees Celsius, ground winds out of the north at 7 meters per second, and indications that upper winds are within limits at all altitudes. So again, weather conditions are very good, and currently we are go for launch. About 10 minutes ago, the spacecraft ground crew signaled that it was go for launch. This was followed by a similar signal at T-minus 5 minutes from the Proton's first 3 booster stages. The launch team is currently going through their final system checks in preparation for launch. Assuming we have all systems go, we'll have liftoff in just about 2.5 minutes. Then at T-minus 2 minutes, the Breeze-M upper stage is polled by the automatic sequencer to give the last go command prior to liftoff at T0. Right now, the vehicle appears to be in positive condition for liftoff.
As you said, about 2.5 minutes to go until liftoff. And now for the first few minutes after liftoff, we'll be watching the action from Baikonur in real time. As the ILS Proton travels easterly downrange, however, our viewers are going to notice some time lags between the actual flight and the display of those events, and in the commentary as well. The reason behind this delay is that as ILS Proton follows its pre-programmed flight path, it will pass out of range of the Baikonur receiving stations. At this point, signals are received by stations downrange and are then transmitted back to Baikonur. This is going to cause short delays. All right, and so okay, now Russ Baitula, ILS Program Director, is going to take us through the final pre-launch stages and through liftoff. Russ?
Okay, we're just coming up to about 1.5 minutes before liftoff. This is the home stretch here. I've got a great view of the vehicle on the pad. Clear skies ahead, so we should have a good view of the vehicle heading downrange after liftoff.